Misao is a psychological survival horror adventure game developed by Fenn, with a remake and HD remaster published by Playism. Set in the same universe as Madfather, the story takes place in a high school shortly after the mysterious disappearance of a girl named Misao. The protagonist, canonically named Aki, though the player can rename and choose their gender, loses consciousness and wakes up in an alternate dimension where Misao's spirit has cursed to the school. The main character must locate Misao's personal belongings to uncover the truth behind her death and free her soul from suffering. Through the protagonist's journey to understand Misao's tragic story, the game covers disturbing and relatable issues, highlighting the devastating effects of bullying in what is meant to be a safe school environment. And in this video, I will explore some of the psychological themes presented through the characters and the storyline. As always, this video will be full of spoilers, so keep that in mind. And if you enjoy this content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. So, sit back, get cozy, and join me as we explore Misao's psychological horror at midnight. Misao was first launched in May 2011 as a freeware title, developed using Wolf RPG Editor, with additional versions and translations released over the next 3 years. In October 2017, Misao Definitive Edition came out, featuring enhanced graphics and new features, marking the most significant update since the original. Fast forward to August 2024, and the HD remaster was released, which, according to a blog post on Steam, doesn't only add HD graphics and update the overall presentation, but also adds new features that make exploring stages all the more enjoyable, giving the game a new play feel. At that time, I had just finished Madfather, so it was perfect timing to dive into the HD remaster of Misao and experience its new play feel. Both Misao and Madfather were created by Fenn, also known as the Miscreant's Room. I briefly covered Fenn's backstory in my Madfather analysis, so feel free to check that out if you're interested. Now back to Misao. While Madfather received overwhelmingly positive reviews, with one article even calling it one of the best RPG Maker games ever made, Misao received more mixed feedback. Some reviewers found it underwhelming and repetitive, while others praised its impactful portrayal of bullying. Regardless of where you stand, I'm more interested in examining how bullying plays a significant role in this story, especially in relation to the mental and emotional well-being of the high school students involved. While the game features plenty of gore and supernatural elements, similar to the infamous Corpse Party, there's a deeper layer here, and I think it's worth discussing. And with that, let's get into the game itself. I'll provide a summary of the game just in case you've either never heard of it or would like a refresher, but I would like to mention that because the game is non-linear, meaning the objectives can be obtained in any order, I'll just summarize the story according to the order that I played it. I used this walkthrough on Steam to play the game, so I will mainly follow the order of the guide. But feel free to skip to this section if you just want the analysis. The story kicks off with Aki, our main character, reflecting on the disappearance of Misao. He describes her as just an ordinary girl, someone he wanted to get closer to but never got the chance. As he's getting ready for school, he hears what he thinks is Misao's voice, desperately calling for help. He shrugs it off as nothing but a dream, yet the uneasy feeling lingers. At school, we meet the rest of the cast just as an earthquake hits, throwing the building into chaos. The lights go out and the students start wondering if Misao's spirit has returned to curse the place. Aki blacks out, only to wake up in a disheveled classroom. Venturing out, he finds the school twisted and broken, with missing floors and eerie, shadowy figures stalking the halls. It's then he's ambushed by one of these apparitions, which pushes him down missing flooring and into the student council room. Here, he meets Mr. Onigawara, the self-proclaimed student council president. Onigawara tells Aki the school has been dragged into another realm by a curse, Misao's curse. Then Miss Library, the school's vice president and librarian, shows up, explaining that the school is now teeming with spirits that are killing the students. Before she leaves, Onigawara sets Aki on his mission to save Misao's soul and lift the curse. He offers Aki advice and a central location to save the game, while Miss Library serves as a source of hints in case he gets stuck. To free Misao, Aki needs to track down 6 items tied to her and bring them to the shrine in the courtyard. Because this game is non-linear, these items can be discovered in any desired order. The twisted state of the school, however, leaves Aki facing over 40 ways to die in all manner of gruesome scenarios. These frequent deaths make saving the game a crucial part of the experience. As Aki dives deeper into the school's halls, he encounters 3 other students meeting brutal ends. With each death, Aki is thrown into flashbacks of their past interactions with Misao, slowly uncovering each character's role in her tragic downfall. The first to die in my playthrough is Saotome, and in her memory, we see Misao humiliated as her private messages to Toma, her apparent crush, are posted for everyone to see. At first, Misao suspects Yoshino, but she later realizes it was Saotome who leaked the messages. After Saotome's death, a glowing orb floats from her body and ignites a tombstone by the shrine, signaling her connection to Misao's suffering. This pattern continues with each character as we come to understand the part they played in Misao's torment. Kudo, who had known Misao since childhood, once stood up for her, but eventually abandoned her to avoid ridicule. In his flashback, which Aki views after his demise, we see him turning a blind eye as Yoshino bullies Misao. And speaking of Yoshino, Aki finds her tied up in the science room. She begs for his help, but Aki hides just in time to watch a mad scientist, likely the same one from Madfather, arrive and take her life. In her flashback, we see her resentment toward Misao, whom she bullied very frequently and in progressively disturbing ways. Then there's Toma, one of the few characters who doesn't meet an immediate death, which turns out to be significant later on. Instead, Aki finds him injured and brings him to Miss Library's room to rest until the end of the game. At this point in my playthrough, Toma had shown up in Saotome's flashback. He was seen asking Misao out shortly after Yoshino exposes her feelings for him, but later, Misao stumbled upon him in an intimate moment with Saotome, who hinted that she was the one who shared Misao's private texts with the whole school. Continuing the exploration, Aki heads into the infirmary, where he finds his friend Ayaka and their teacher, Mr. Kurata. Kurata claims Ayaka encountered a spirit and needed to be sedated. But when Aki returns, he finds Ayaka dead, with Kurata himself barely alive, which also becomes important later on. He hands Aki one of Misao's belongings, which in this playthrough is the last item needed. Aki now has all 6 items: a broken phone, dirty blazer, muddy leather shoes, torn ribbon tie, broken hair tie, and a mysterious package. He places them at the shrine, but nothing happens. Onigawara then reveals that to complete the ritual, someone Misao held a grudge against must be sacrificed. Aki now has 2 options: Toma or Mr. Kurata. Choosing Toma leads to the bad ending, while sacrificing Kurata leads to the normal ending, but both reveal the truth. Kurata was the one responsible for Misao's death. In the normal ending, Aki watches the curse lift as Misao's ghost finally finds peace. He then discovers her remains on the grounds, with both body and spirit disappearing. The school returns to normal, but the other characters are notably absent, suggesting they've been erased from existence. And just before the credits roll, Misao's ghost reappears behind Toma. After completing the game, Truth Mode is unlocked, throwing Aki into a flashback of his time with Misao before dropping him into a place called Dark Space, a setting fans of Madfather will recognize. Here, Onigawara offers a chance for redemption, explaining that while the students who tormented Misao were guilty, they weren't the direct cause of her death and thus deserve a shot at rebirth, at least according to him. Aki explores the deep psyches of Kudo, Yoshino, and Saotome, seeing glimpses of their regrets and self-loathing alongside distorted versions of Misao confronting each of them. In a separate path, Aki faces Mr. Kurata's grave, where a flashback reveals his sketchy past. Growing up as an outcast, a young Kurata mistook the kindness of a schoolgirl named Takano for love, reacting with violence when she rejected him. Aki finds Kurata now, lamenting while slashing Misao's dead body, consumed by his need for love and acceptance. In a final act of compassion, Aki offers a gesture of forgiveness before leaving the grave. In Tomo's grave at the end, Aki finds him unconscious beside Misao, who expresses her fears of loneliness. Aki reassures her, reminding her of their friendship, and she finally finds some semblance of peace, leaving a message on the classroom chalkboard before the screen fades. And as the credits roll, we see Onigawara resurrecting Ayaka, and Miss Library raising the spirits of Kudo, Yoshino, and Saotome as babies, hinting at a cycle of rebirth and redemption for them. Before starting the analysis, I want to clarify that I'm not a psychologist or qualified to diagnose mental health conditions. While I'll explore possible motivations behind character behaviors, this is not an attempt to label them with specific diagnoses or compare them to real-world individuals. The game tackles serious themes that I believe merit discussion, but my insights should be interpreted with the understanding that I am not an expert in this field. Misao explores the age-old and deeply impactful theme of high school bullying. Adolescence is a period of self-discovery and change, yet for some, it's marred by the immense pain of being targeted. While certain characters in Misao are clearly the primary aggressors, the game reveals a broader web of culpability. The consequences of Misao's suffering ripple through the school, leaving a lasting mark on both the characters' psyches and the supernatural environment. So, let's take a closer look at each character's role in the story. In the game, both Saotome and Yoshino bully Misao, but their approaches and motivations diverge significantly, reflecting their personal insecurities and resentments. Saotome, outwardly innocent and sweet, is driven by deep insecurities and a need for validation, particularly concerning her relationship with Toma. Her approach is underhanded, utilizing gossip and betrayal to subtly undermine Misao. She is alleged to have publicly shared Misao's private messages to Toma to humiliate her, both shielding herself from competition and reinforcing her social standing. This passive-aggressive manipulation allows Saotome to secure Toma's attention while feeling reassured in her own social position. Yoshino, on the other hand, is overtly cruel and direct. Motivated by jealousy and the need to affirm her dominance, she sees Misao as a threat to her self-worth. Rooted largely in her social influence, Yoshino's actions escalate to severe public humiliations, using physical and emotional violence to assert her power. By degrading Misao, Yoshino experiences a twisted sense of superiority, briefly quelling her own insecurities and gaining approval from her peers. The satisfaction she finds in tearing down Misao's reputation becomes her way of maintaining control and projecting her inner turmoil outwardly. But this bullying might have not been as rampant if there was any intervention from school authorities and bystander students. An indifferent, even passively accepting atmosphere leaves Misao isolated and vulnerable, which signals to bullies like Saotome and Yoshino that their actions would likely go unchallenged. Bullying has been a long-standing issue, but it was only in recent decades that it began receiving serious research attention, notes Shelley Heimel, PhD, a professor of human development at the University of British Columbia. Although we may picture a school bully as a bigger student from a troubled background physically intimidating a smaller peer, bullying actually takes on various forms and stems from a range of motivations, as we can see in the case with Yoshino and Saotome. According to StopBullying.gov, students may bully others to establish dominance in their social hierarchy or as a reaction to their own insecurities. And these behaviors often go unchecked when school staff or peers fail to intervene. In Japan, similar factors appear to contribute to bullying in schools. Surveys by Japan's Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology have documented a rise in school bullying cases in recent years, potentially fueled by inadequate intervention and a culture that may unintentionally discourage reporting. This environment enables bullies to operate with little consequence, mirroring the dynamics present in the game's Japanese high school setting, where bullying is normalized and unaddressed. Kudo is Misao's estranged childhood friend, while Toma is her love interest. Both represent passive bystanders rather than active participants in Misao's bullying, though their inaction indirectly fuels her suffering and isolation. Unlike Saotome and Yoshino, who openly torment Misao, Kudo and Toma's failure to step in, even as Misao endures increasingly cruel treatment, ultimately makes them complicit. Kudo's connection to Misao hints at a deeper concern for her, yet he consistently prioritizes fitting in over taking a stand. His hesitance illustrates a common bystander dilemma, a genuine wish to intervene tempered by fear of becoming a target himself, making him pull back to avoid drawing negative attention. Toma, by contrast, appears detached and indifferent to Misao's suffering. Even when her affections for him are exposed, he remains emotionally uninvolved, neither offering support nor acknowledging the bullying because it doesn't affect him personally. His emotional distance showcases another aspect of bystander inaction, a lack of empathy that enables him to ignore Misao's suffering rather than be moved to help. Both of these characters may exemplify the bystander effect, a phenomenon where individuals are less likely to intervene in emergencies when others are present. Research identifies 3 contributing factors: diffusion of responsibility, where you're feeling less accountable when others are present; evaluation apprehension, which is the fear of judgment when helping; and pluralistic ignorance, where you're assuming the situation isn't serious because no one else intervenes. Kudo's hesitation may stem from evaluation apprehension, stemming from his concern over others' opinions, while Toma's indifference could reflect pluralistic ignorance, as he interprets others' inaction as a cue that Misao's suffering doesn't demand attention. Though Kudo and Toma play prominent bystander roles in the story, the broader school environment perpetuates Misao's sense of abandonment, with her peers and teachers also failing to intervene. This collective inaction, shaped by the bystander effect, compounds Misao's feelings of isolation and helplessness, leaving her to endure her suffering alone. Ayaka, a classmate and friend of Aki, and Takano, a peer from Mr. Kurata's high school days, both serve as examples of the risks that can arise when men misinterpret women's kindness or admiration. Even though these 2 characters have brief roles in the story, they represent a common dilemma of how female behaviors are often oversimplified and misunderstood by men, with consequences that range from mild to destructive. Now, before continuing, I wanted to clarify first that this isn't intended as a sweeping statement about men, women, and their ability to perceive or misinterpret one another's emotions. While I'll show research that suggests that men may sometimes misinterpret emotional cues more frequently than women, this does not mean that women never misinterpret emotions or that all men do. It also doesn't imply that every instance of misinterpretation is harmful. However, the point I'll be making is in regards to responding appropriately to these situations, especially when responses become harmful or disproportionate, as illustrated in this game. Ayaka's behavior toward her teacher, Mr. Kurata, begins as a lighthearted, innocent crush, where she shares her admiration for his appearance and kind personality with her friends. Although her interest in Kurata leans into playful admiration, Kurata sees things differently. He interprets Ayaka's behavior as shallow, reducing her attraction solely to his physical appearance and in turn harboring resentment towards her. Takano's experience, however, shows an even more dramatic misinterpretation. Driven by empathy and also a sense of guilt for not stepping in when Kurata was bullied, Takano extends kindness toward him as a peer. Kurata, however, reads Takano's gestures as romantic interest. This confusion turns her friendly support into something far more complicated, as Kurata's mind attaches romantic intent to what was simply kindness. Kurata's responses to Ayaka and Takano might show a lack of insight into his own projections and insecurities. He is upset that Ayaka would admire him simply for his looks, ignoring the fact that adolescent crushes are often superficial and fleeting by nature. A more appropriate response might involve setting boundaries without resentment, or acknowledging that her attraction is harmless unless it escalates to inappropriate behavior, such as Ayaka rummaging through his personal items. Takano's case is even more nuanced. Kindness shown by a peer can sometimes be misread, and these situations ideally call for open communication to establish clear boundaries. For Kurata, however, the misinterpretation becomes a justification for hostility, which projects as outward antagonism. Research published by Rihanna Wegner from the Department of Psychology at Wayne State University suggests that men are more prone than women to misinterpret kindness as romantic interest. The reasons for this vary, but in Kurata's case, it could be his low self-esteem fueling his reactions. By potentially projecting his own insecurities onto Ayaka and Takano, he avoids confronting his issues and instead creates a narrative where their behaviors affirm his negative view of himself. But now that we're on the subject, let's take a closer look at Kurata's character. Kurata, also referred to as Sota in earlier versions of the game, is a little different from other characters. Rather than simply being a bully or a bystander, he embodies a predatory figure who misuses his position as a teacher to pursue his own disturbing interests. His backstory in Truth Mode shows him as a troubled child who was often bullied and showed an act of kindness when he rescued a cat. However, as an adult, he channels unresolved anger and possible deep-seated insecurities toward vulnerable teenage girls. Throughout his backstory and the present, he exhibits a similar pattern. He gains a girl's trust, makes a move that's wholly inappropriate, and then explodes when he's rejected. And this isn't just mild embarrassment or hurt feelings, he lashes out with aggression, feeling betrayed by their rejection despite their kindness toward him. His offhand remarks about being unaccepted may reveal this twisted resentment and a sense of entitlement to their affection. We see traits that hint at narcissistic tendencies, which I'll touch on in a moment. What makes him one of the most unnerving antagonists in Misao is his ability to mask these intentions under the guise of kindness and trustworthiness, gaining the confidence of students only to later reveal his predatory nature. When Misao goes missing, his carefully maintained facade allows him to fly under the radar, avoiding suspicion. What feels even more chilling is that even if he had hurt her without killing her, chances are her accusations wouldn't be taken seriously given his well-established authority and trust. Kurata's behavior might align with characteristics of vulnerable or covert narcissism, a form of narcissism where individuals feel shame, inferiority, and hypersensitivity. He seems to experience narcissistic injury when his advances are rebuffed, as any negative response threatens his self-image, especially his insecurities about his appearance and worth. And it's this sensitivity that ultimately poisons Misao's fate. In her most desperate moment, she turns to him for support, seeking comfort from a trusted figure, only to be manipulated, betrayed, and ultimately killed. Misao experienced a lot of suffering while she was alive, both from her peers and those she felt she could trust. While the story focuses on specific individuals who harmed her, the game itself intrinsically illustrates the impact of her torment on her mental state. The school setting, originally a symbol of safety and familiarity, becomes a broken, decayed nightmare filled with peril, reflecting Misao's inner turmoil. The game also incorporates Japanese folklore, including references to figures like Hanako-san, an urban legend about a girl rumored to haunt school bathrooms, sometimes linked to bullying and isolation. Even the game's mechanics deepen this sense of dread. With over 40 possible deaths for the protagonist and the pressure to constantly save the current progress, the player is frequently reminded of Misao's own relentless fear, vulnerability, and the desire to be saved herself. For victims of bullying, each encounter can feel like a small death, wearing away their self-worth and desire to go on. Misao's shattered sense of self is evident in Truth Mode when she states her desire to take Toma with her, despite his indifference during her life. She even admits to wanting companionship to avoid being alone, highlighting how small gestures, even insincere ones, initially gave her a fragile sense of security. Numerous studies indicate that bullying has profoundly damaging effect on victims, particularly regarding self-perception and self-worth. Victims often develop a negative self-image and may feel inferior to their peers. This isolation can lead to a craving for external validation, and when such support is absent, it often intensifies feelings of anxiety and depression. When victims feel there is no one they can trust or confide in, these negative emotions can become even more overwhelming, potentially leading to long-term mental health issues. In the end, when Misao looks into the mirror and sees her changed appearance, she's horrified at the sight. Confronted with her changed appearance, her reaction suggests that this could either symbolize her ghostly state or her distorted self-image, warped by constant abuse. Driven by a desire for revenge, Misao tried to inflict the same pain she endured when she cursed the school, although Aki suggests that vengeance won't bring her the acceptance she truly craves. And on that topic, let's cover our final character. Aki's character brings an interesting counterpoint to the revenge-fueled atmosphere in the game. While Misao is focused on vengeance, Aki is focused on radical empathy. More than simply playing the one good person who was kind to Misao, Aki shows compassion as he urges others to break free from the cycle of harm. When Misao wants to punish her abusers further, he encourages her to release her resentment and allow herself peace, even if that means forgiving or moving beyond her past. Psychologically, Aki's character could represent how forgiving and moving on is actually better for Misao than revenge. In a 2008 study, researchers found that participants who took revenge on an offender continued to dwell on the hurt more than those who let go and moved on. Aki's insistence that Misao abandon her revenge might echo this research, as he knows revenge will ultimately trap her in endless suffering, while releasing it could allow her to find peace. And he doesn't just do this with Misao. When Aki faces each of the students who harmed Misao and sees them reborn as infants, this could carry both cultural and symbolic meanings. In Buddhism, the concept of rebirth represents renewal, and in psychological terms, rebirth signifies transformation and healing. For Aki, helping others to restart might show his hope that compassion can lead to redemption, even in those who did harm. Either way, Aki may represent that one supportive individual who wants to help his friend find peace in the suffering. Misao is a terrifying portrayal of the toll that bullying can take, vividly expressing a teenage girl's inner turmoil through graphic scenes of death and suffering. Although revenge appears to drive the plot, in the end, it reveals itself as a barrier to Misao's healing and peace. By having Aki extend that compassion toward her, Misao is able to end the vicious cycle of suffering in order for her soul to move on. If you or someone you know has been affected by bullying, or would like to learn more information, check out the following resources, which are also listed in the description. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this video. If there's anything you feel I've missed from a psychological analysis perspective, have a different view about any of the characters, or would like to see me explore a particular character in detail in another video, please let me know in the comments below. I'm interested to hear your take on the subject. I'm also open to hear any suggestions you have for next games I should cover. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next game.